And I think this is the thing that you and I have talked about often, is that the biggest, um, I think one of the areas that young men are particularly failed in is helping young men understand that what you want requires you to go after it.
Yes.
And like you said, like I said at the beginning, is
Mm.
I like people to focus on what they do well.
Yeah.
What you do wrong, what you're not good at, is more often than not irrelevant, because nobody is good at everything.
Exactly.
So
That is,
if you focus on what you do well, you will often find habits that transfer into other areas of your life,
yeah.
or that can transfer into other areas of your life. And the more you focus on, actually, I am good at this, I can do that, you start building a foundation of confidence where you learn to trust yourself. And then when
Yes.
things don't work out, you're like, oh yeah, but I still do this. Instead of like, I'm not good at anything. Nothing ever
Yeah.
works for me. Because you're focusing on one little failure and not the 101 victories you've had.
Victories have had, yeah. Yeah. It's just like any, as we have talked about this several times, just like any professional athlete. They practice and practice and practice until their bodies know how things work. So when the footballer's coming to take that penalty, is practice and practice and practice. You go where he knows he's got to go, or that free kick, you go where his body knows he's got to go, and the goalkeeper has been practicing and practicing. So it's repeating something that you're doing good, and that repeating those things that are doing good will then transfer to other areas of your life, as you said, because you keep on repeating what is positive. And we all have failed. Even even the most successful people in life have gone through failures, because that's how you learn.
This is what people don't understand.
Yeah,
The more successful somebody is, the more often they failed at something, like
exactly.
consistently.
Yeah,
And it's a cliche that when people say, "Oh well, every failure is a learning curve," but successful people really understand that.
yeah,
It's just right. Okay, now I know how not to do it. So what do I
yeah,
do next?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that fear of failing is what holds a lot of young men back today.
It's because you're living, especially in this world of social media, which we didn't have when we were growing up, is people show you what they want to show you. So they're picking the best side of their day. They are picking the best activity they have done. They're showing you the holiday they have done to Greece, or to Ibiza, or wherever they go. They're showing you that, but they're not showing you their day-to-day struggles.
No.
They hide that from you. They are not showing you that. So, and there are a lot of people feeding those small victories, and people then you then believe that everyone is like that. They are having successes in life. No, it's not like that.
It isn't. It just isn't.
Yeah.
It's not how life works at all in any way, shape, or form for anyone. And the idea that successful people don't have problems, it's ludicrous.
It's a myth. It's a myth. As long as you are a person, you come through challenges. Lots of them. Lots of them. Yeah. And it's just so as we are saying, and these things don't respect borders.
No.
It doesn't respect borders. Wherever you are, whatever age you are, it comes through. So it's just trying, we were saying, it's just trying to help young men understand this, that, right, you have committed an offense. You got nicked. Yeah, so what?
Yeah.
Go and do the time, but learn from that. This is how you're going to learn from that. This is what you need to do. The first one, you're not going to be the last one. This is not the end of your life.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it can actually be the start.
Of course, yeah. You've put a foot wrong that day, that's fine. That's fine. The only thing is, if you put a foot wrong the next day, let's talk about it. Let's make sure that you don't keep on doing that. So you don't have 75 cases of you putting the same foot wrong.
And then saying it's not my fault.
Exactly.
Well, it's no one else's. because one of the things like that it took me a long time to learn, and it did take me a long time to learn, is that happiness that people seek is actually following the things you want to do.
Yeah.
And like the original,
and I'm sure you don't mind me saying this. I've seen that in you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was going to say. It's just like I for a long time wanted to do a podcast, and it was actually when I got off my arse and started. Right, well, I'll just go and do this. And I had no idea how. Some would say I still don't. But this now, I think, is episode 76. Yeah.
I don't realize that time flies. Time flies.
This is what I mean.
Remember, you're uploading 20 million of them overnight.
And this is, it took me a long, like just taking that leap of faith.
Yes.
And starting a podcast just one episode at a time.
Yeah.
And this is, and people like, I don't have it worked out. Right now, I don't have any guests booked in for any more podcasts. I have about 5 people who I'm trying to set dates with.
Yeah.
But if I was to go right now, I don't have a single anyone booked in for a podcast after this after you and I finish. No one is booked in for a podcast.
But it doesn't stop you. Still go on.
That's one of the things I had to learn. That happens all the time. So sometimes I don't put a podcast out for 3 or 4 weeks. And if I don't get anyone, if I don't get anyone booked in now, between now and August, I'm going on holiday for September. So it'll be 6 weeks before I do, if not 8 weeks before I do another There might not be another episode of my podcast until October. Because, like I said, but there are people that were due to be booked, but had to cancel for whatever reason. Yeah. There's people that book in and then like, oh, I've got busy, and there's 2 people for definite that are going to be booked back in probably for October.
Yeah.
And there's 2 people I'm waiting to hear back from just for August, who are like, I'll do August. But I sent that email. One of them, I sent that email about a week ago.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like all the time. Sometimes I'll have 3 or 4 podcasts. Like funnily enough, when I was looking around June, July, August was stacked for podcasts. Yeah. And then one way or another, everyone had to cancel.
Yeah, and because the holiday times and all these things.
Yeah.
These things are happening in people's lives. But that doesn't, you don't give up because somebody's cancelled. Yeah, you go ahead and find a way of getting a solution of that.
If that was something I had to learn.
Yeah. And, go ahead and pick somebody different, talk to someone. Or even, and it's all right, to have anybody. Because it gives you time to prepare material. As we were saying,
You just then start researching more guests. So that's another thing when you talk about time. I have to find these guests.
Yeah.
You have to find them. You have to look them up. You have to. Sometimes they're introductions from other people, and rejections. The amount of people that don't even reply to a message.
Oh yes.
The amount of people that just say no,
and that's one. That's one thing. Sorry to cut you, but that's one other thing that most young men struggle with because of ego is rejection. Any form of rejection. A girl rejects you, college rejects you, school, family rejects you. Anything that you are associating, that you want to associate with, says no, or you think they've said no because you haven't read it properly, you haven't understood it properly. And dealing with the rejection becomes a huge challenge. It doesn't care, and those things don't care away which border you are in.
And I would say this was definitely something that affected me a lot, especially as an adult, is before I even got rejected, I wouldn't try. Because
for fear of rejection.
Yeah, it would stop me doing anything. I would always try and do something with somebody else because then maybe that'll make it work instead of having faith and confidence in just myself.
Yeah.
So like I said, in terms of, like, as you know, one of the biggest things for mental health is following things, just doing things you want to do, try and figure them out, getting them done. And just for me, one of those big things was just screw it. I'll start a podcast. I don't know how, don't know where. I'll just start and see where it goes. And I've set 75 episodes in. I've even been on a couple of podcasts. Now you and I are going to start. You're going to have your own podcast, and you and I are going to do a podcast together. And you don't know where these things lead, but before you know it, you're actually doing things you enjoy.